So, Dusty, the beginning of your very illustrious baseball career started when you got drafted out of high school back in 1967 by the Atlanta Braves as an 18-year-old, and you immediately went from California to Austin, Texas to play for the Austin Braves. Considering that we were in a minor league park now, how is it like starting your professional career out of high school, 18 years old, in a different state?
Well, it was different. That was in the 60s. There's a lot of, unrest and, rioting and Vietnam. There's a lot of turmoil in our country at the time. And I had to go from California directly to the South. And that was like, it was a rude awakening, but I learned a lot, during the process. I was always the youngest guy on the team, so I was called the kid all the time. And that's hard to imagine. I was the youngest all the time. But, I had a great journey, most of it on the bus, in the minor leagues like you guys do here, because I was curious about how long your bus trips are here. And, like you learn each other. You learn about people on those long bus trips. You learn how to get along with guys from, different countries and different backgrounds and, just different everything. And so, it was great. It was tough sometimes. I mean, it was real tough because we weren't making any money. We were trying to help our families a lot of times, and so it was a great experience. I got to meet my roommate, Ralph Garr. We signed at the same time, and we came back through the minor leagues together. And I'm from California. He's from the South, and we learned a lot from each other.
It wasn't until a little over a year later when you made your professional debut with the Atlanta Braves. Considering that it was still around the same time period as you got drafted in the late 60s, what was it like playing in Major League Baseball also down in the South?
Well, I was just glad to be anywhere. I was 19 years old or something like that, turning 20. And I was fortunate enough because I had Hank Aaron as my mentor, and he promised my mother that he would take care of me. That's the reason, not the reason I signed, but that gave me reason to sign. And, I did get called up. I didn't realize how lucky I was to be there at such a young age. I always felt that I was a big league player. Even though I was in the 25th round draft choice, I always felt that in my heart that I was number one. And that's what I try to tell these guys here. No matter where you're drafted, you want the opportunity to shine, and you got to make the most of your opportunity.
You had a pretty lengthy career with the Atlanta Braves before you started off with the LA Dodgers. But before I mention your time with the Dodgers, there was one specific moment that caught my eye when you were with the Braves on April 8th, 1974. You were mentioning Hank Aaron. You were on deck when one of the greatest moments in sports history happened. Hank Aaron hitting his 715th home run, passing Babe Ruth. What was it like just being there, basically up close and personal to one of the greatest moments in sports?
Well, at that time, you didn't think it was going to be one of the greatest moments in sports. I mean, we all knew it was a great time and a great time for Hank. But, it was tough on Hank during that time because, he wasn't very happy during that time. And, we all wanted Hank to break the record. We didn't. That's why I didn't run out there right away, when Hank hit the home run, because I didn't want to run out there because that was Hank's moment. And, that's a real blessing from God, is the fact that how close I've become with Hank and been since I was 18 years old. And he taught me a lot about life. He taught me a lot about baseball, for sure, but just how to be mentally and spiritually strong as well as physically strong.
And so I believe it was 1976 you ended up playing for the Los Angeles Dodgers after playing with the Braves for a long amount of time. What was it like playing for the hometown team, basically, considering that you were raised in California, after having a pretty lengthy career with the Atlanta Braves and all the stuff that you've learned and all the people that you've met over there?
Well, great. Honestly, I was ready to get out of Atlanta at that time. We were losing, and I was ready to go back to California if possible. And, they traded me to the Dodgers. And the Dodgers were my team when I was a kid. It's like playing for your hometown team, and my idol on the Dodgers was Tommy Davis. He wore number 12, and I ended up wearing his number and playing my hero's position. So, yeah, that was a real blessing to get traded to the Dodgers, especially we went to World Series and we were winning. And, I just love to win, and the Dodgers were about winning.
And it didn't take long for you to make a name for yourself in a Dodgers uniform. In 1977, the Dodgers became the first team in Major League history, alongside Cey, Steve Garvey, another guy that actually asked about this, and Reggie Smith. 4 players hit 30 home runs. What was it like being a part of history, being one of 4 guys to hit 30 home runs in a season for the Dodgers in 1977?
Well, we were just trying to play. We were trying to play and win, and there was we didn't even realize what we were doing, about to make some history at that time until a couple weeks left in the season. We were trying to win the pennant. And to this day, I still sign cards with myself and Garvey and Cey and Reggie Smith. And Reggie might have been the best of us all, because Reggie Smith, he led us.
And after a couple of years, you said that you were paying attention on winning the pennant that year in 1977. There were a couple of years where the Dodgers did, but unfortunately were not able to win the title. But in 1981, in a strike-shortened season, the Dodgers did win the World Series. What was it like being a part of a World Series team after a long stretch of time without winning one in the majors?
Well, we had gone to the World Series 77 and 78 against the Yankees. Quite frankly, we were tired of playing the Yankees. And the Yankees used to beat the Dodgers when I was a kid, and then here I was beating me as a man. And so, we finally got those Yankees in 1981. But that was a great feeling. That was the only championship team I've been on. I had no clue at that time that was going to be it. But that was a great time in our careers. And when I see the guys now, we don't really talk about it, but we realize it.
And so going away from your playing days, you started as a manager with the San Francisco Giants in 1993. It was one of a couple big headlines that year, the other being that the Giants acquired a guy from Pittsburgh named Barry Bonds. What was the process like of acquiring Barry from Pittsburgh when you became the manager for the Giants?
Well, actually, they acquired Barry before they signed me. And that was a great move, because Barry's from my hometown, and his dad. I grew up with his dad. My dad was his dad, Little League coach, Bobby Bonds, and so that was like we reunited. Like I said, I knew Barry when he was a kid. I knew Barry the day he was born, and so that was a great marriage. It was tough sometimes, but it was. I wouldn't change anything for the world.
And during your time with the San Francisco Giants, you won the National League Manager of the Year 3 times. And with Barry on the roster, you went to the World Series in 2002 against the Angels. What was it like managing a team that went to the World Series with someone that you basically knew since he was alive, Barry Bonds?
Well, it was great. I mean, the World Series, nothing. I watch the World Series now. I watch the playoffs now. I like watching baseball, but to be there in the World Series, this is what you kind of dreamed about as a kid. You always, thought about the World Series, what it would be like. And I tell you, I pity guys that never get to get there, because, the feeling is probably unlike any other feeling that they ever had.
And looking over who you've met and what you've done throughout your entire career, and hearing you talk about both Hank Aaron and Barry Bonds, 2 of the greatest hitters in the history of the sport, how would you compare both of those guys and their accomplishments and what they have done throughout their careers from your perspective? How would you compare both those guys?
Well, they're from different eras. I've seen them both. And, Hank was, in my opinion, he had some great players. He competed against Willie Mays and Clemente and these guys, but I think Hank was the greatest of that era, and Barry was the greatest of his era. And the thing that both of them had, they had exceptional vision. They had, a lot of confidence, and they saw things that other people didn't see on the baseball field. And so, that's what I like to compare. The fact that they both have a high level of concentration on a daily level, which is probably the toughest thing to do in baseball.
And one final question about Hank and Barry Bonds. If there was a situation where if both of these guys switch places, Barry played in the 1970s and Hank Aaron was playing in the early 2000s, would they still be if they play in different eras, would they still be the amazing baseball players that we see them as today?
Well, you don't know if they're going to be as amazing, or they might be even more amazing. You know, I mean, great is great, and it doesn't matter what area you play in. You know, I mean, the Lord didn't stop making great players. They're going to be great players, you know, from now on and now on. Everybody's going to compare, just like boxers. They always compare who's the greatest of all time. But, you know, in my opinion, great is great.